Before you enter 2026, let me ask you one question. How much of your life is being spent inside your head, thinking about people who are not thinking about you at all? You replay their words. You imagine their judgments. You suffer conversations that never even happened. What if I told you that? This habit is quietly stealing your strength, your peace, and your destiny. And what if in 2026, you finally learned how to stop feeding it without becoming cold, careless, or selfish? If you stay with me, I will show you a wisdom-based discipline to free your mind from unnecessary attachment to others, so you move through 2026 with clarity, inner power, and unshakable self-respect. Longer controlled by thoughts that were never yours to carry. 1. Most suffering is imagined twice. Once in reality, once again in the mind. You wake up, and before your eyes have even fully adjusted to the light, your mind is already alive with scenarios. Scenarios that have not happened, conversations that have not been spoken, judgments that may never exist outside the corners of your imagination. This is where the first suffering begins, the real suffering, the one grounded in events and people. Someone said something. Someone acted in a way you did not want. Someone rejected you, or perhaps they merely looked at you differently. The body feels the pain, the heart tightens, and the mind whispers 1,000 stories. But the second suffering, this is the dangerous one. This is the echo that you allow to replay endlessly. You run the memory over and over, shaping it, adding your fears, and painting it with layers of what-ifs. You imagine the worst possible outcomes, the harshest judgments, the cruelest intentions. Suddenly, your mind has multiplied the original pain. What was once a moment small, fleeting, perhaps even insignificant, becomes an entire storm in your consciousness. And you are caught inside it, believing it to be real. Notice this pattern. Pause and feel it. Every imagined scenario is a subtle theft of energy. Every replay is a theft of presence. You are not suffering the reality of the world. You are suffering your interpretation of it twice. And this is where freedom can begin. When you realize that you are not required to entertain every thought that comes to you. Not every memory deserves a full narrative in your mind. Not every glance or word deserves a theater of meaning. The mind has this strange ability. It takes the smallest seed of discomfort and grows into an entire forest of worry. And the forest, though imagined, feels as real as any physical experience. This is why meditation is not simply sitting quietly. It is watching the mind invent worlds and choosing which ones deserve your attention. Ask yourself quietly, which of the pains I carry are real? And which am I imagining twice? Every imagined suffering is an invitation to examine your own power. If you can see the pattern, you can intervene. You can stop the second suffering before it multiplies. And in that pause, you find clarity. And when clarity touches your mind, it illuminates a truth that is both simple, devastatingly powerful. Most suffering is not outside you, it is inside you, born of the stories you tell yourself. And just as you begin to notice the grip of imagined suffering, you will discover something even deeper, something that can make your mind both strong and unshakable. The way thinking too much about others weakens the fortress of your own consciousness. 2. Your mind becomes weak when it lives in other people's opinions. Look around. How much of your day, how much of your life is spent measuring yourself against the invisible rulers of other people's thoughts? You pause before speaking. You hesitate before acting. You edit yourself endlessly. Sometimes, you even apologize silently in your mind for actions no one has criticized because you anticipate their disapproval. This is where weakness seeps in. Not physical weakness, not the body that bends or tires, but the quiet erosion of the mind. A mind that is constantly checking with the outside cannot stand firmly in the inside. It becomes fragile. It trembles under judgment. It doubts every choice. Even your desires, your intuition, your creativity, these can be throttled by the invisible weight of others' opinions. And you may think, I care about them. I respect them. Their judgment matters. But this is a subtle trap. Respect does not require submission of your inner world. Caring does not mean giving away your mind for rent-free occupancy. Every second you allow your attention to wander into the realm of what will they think? You are handing over energy that was never theirs to claim. Consider this. When your mind is weak, you are more likely to suffer imagined suffering. You take small remarks and transform them into mountains. You take silence and shape it into accusation. You lose your capacity to act decisively, to feel freely, to observe clearly. The fortress of your selfhood crumbles quietly, one imagined judgment at a time. Mind, when untethered from external validation, is like a sword tempered in fire. When it is bound to the opinions of others, it is like a blade left to rust. You may still move, you may still function, but your power, your clarity, your capacity for inner peace diminishes with every thought borrowed from someone else. So how do you reclaim it? How do you fortify this mind that has been renting space to invisible landlords? First, by noticing. Second, by refusing. Third, by choosing what is worthy of your attention. You cannot control others' thoughts, but you can control whether you allow them to live in your head. And when you begin to see that freedom, you understand a subtle paradox. The moment you stop thinking too much about others, your mind does not become empty, it becomes full of life, awareness, and purpose. And as your mind grows strong, the next truth emerges. Often, thinking too much about others is not about them at all. It is an avoidance of something far more intimate, far more pressing, and far more transformative. 3. Thinking too much about others is often avoidance of facing yourself. It is easier to replay the words of another than to sit with the silence inside. It is simpler to fixate on someone else's perceived flaws than to confront your own. It is comforting, in a strange way, to measure the world and to define your suffering externally rather than look inward at the parts of yourself you have been avoiding. When you think too much about others, you are hiding. You are postponing the encounter with your own mind, your own shadow, your own fears, your own unhealed wounds. You imagine arguments that never happened, because facing your own truth is harder than imagining someone else's. You invent judgment because examining your own is more painful. You chase approval because you are afraid of your own disapproval. And here is the wisdom. The moment you notice this pattern, the moment you see that your fixation on others is a mirror of your avoidance, you are given a doorway. This is not just a trap, it is an opportunity. Every thought you have about another that causes anxiety, doubt, or anger is a reflection of an unresolved corner of yourself. And the more you face that corner, the less you will need to replay others in your mind. Imagine the energy you waste, hours of mental rehearsal, mountains of invented suffering, endless loops of what did they mean. What if instead you directed that energy inward? What if instead of projecting your mind outward, you brought it home, where it belongs? There you find clarity, there you find strength. There you discover a power that no one can take from you because it lives within your awareness, not borrowed from the world outside. And as you begin to sit with yourself, to face yourself without fear or avoidance, you realize another truth, one that threads all these insights together. When you stop imagining suffering, stop letting others' opinion weaken you, and stop avoiding yourself, you unlock a quiet, unshakable freedom, a freedom that allows you to move through life with purpose, presence, and peace. And yet, this freedom is not passive. It demands practice. It demands attention. It demands courage, because the mind is restless, the world is loud, and there will always be voices both inside and outside trying to claim your focus. But the moment you see the pattern, the moment you understand the mechanic of your own thinking, a subtle but powerful shift occurs. You no longer need to chase, no longer need to fear, no longer need to replay the imagined suffering. You become the observer, you become the guardian, you become the master of your own mind. And from that mastery, you will see something profound. The people who once dominated your thoughts, the imagined suffering that once imprisoned you, the external opinion that once weakened you, all of them dissolve into a distant noise, and you are left with only what truly matters, your own presence, your own clarity, your own strength. And this presence, this clarity, this strength is the foundation upon which the next stage of awakening is built, a stage that requires understanding how detachment is not indifference, but wisdom, and it will define the quality of every moment in your life. Not everyone deserves rent-free space in your consciousness. The mind is a sacred place. It is a temple built from the quiet moments of thought, observation, and reflection. Yet, so often, we allow strangers, acquaintances, former friends, and even fleeting judgments to move in as tenants without paying rent. They occupy space in our consciousness freely, while we silently labor to accommodate them. Every insult we replay, every imagined slight we nurture, every expectation we bend to, they live in the corners of our mind, in our restless nights, in the moments we could have spent growing, learning, or simply breathing. Ask yourself, who truly belongs in my mental space, who deserves to echo through my thoughts, and who is merely a ghost I have allowed to haunt me? The truth is harsh, yet liberating. You do not owe anyone this occupation of your mind. Respect is not permission. Compassion is not invitation. You can acknowledge another's presence in the world without giving them dominion over your inner world. And yet, so many of us do the opposite. We give them entire libraries in our thoughts, while we have not even finished reading the book of ourselves. Imagine the energy you reclaim when you close the doors to those who are not contributing to your growth or peace. Imagine what it feels like to silence the echoes of people who never asked for your attention, who never asked for your thoughts, and who never, in truth, even notice your struggle. This is not selfishness. This is precision. This is wisdom. When you stop allowing unworthy occupants into your consciousness, the mind begins to breathe. It regains the space to explore its own depths, to move with clarity, to act without hesitation, and to respond without the weight of imagined obligation. The mind becomes a sanctuary again, a place of strength, presence, and energy where only what matters resides. And as you begin to practice this discipline, the next subtle truth emerges. You must care, yes, but care without mental clinging, because attachment even to the people you love can become a second kind of occupancy, invisible, silent, and deeply binding. 5. Care deeply, but never cling mentally. There is a sacred difference between care and mental attachment. Care flows naturally, like water to the roots of a tree. It nourishes, supports, and strengthens. It does not grasp or demand. But clinging is a different current entirely. Clinging is mental bondage. It twists care into obsession. It transforms concern into anxiety. It converts love into fear. When you cling mentally, you are no longer acting from presence. You are acting. Energy from projection, expectation, and the quiet terror of loss. You replay every action, every word, every silence, as if your very happiness depended upon them. And in truth, it does not. Your happiness depends upon the cultivation of your own mind, the mastery of your inner environment, and the clarity to see others without distortion. Caring deeply means you invest your energy intentionally. It means you extend compassion without surrendering sovereignty over your thoughts. It means you act, support, and love without demanding reciprocation or validation. You remain anchored in your own awareness while touching the lives of others with your presence. Clinging mentally, on the other hand, is the subtle thief of peace. It turns love into a cage, a repeated narrative, a silent suffering. You may be surrounded by people, yet alone in the prison of your own thoughts. This is why ancient wisdom teaches that detachment is not indifference, it is the cultivation of freedom within. Care. Ask yourself quietly, am I acting from presence? Or am I replaying mental stories about someone else? The moment you distinguish between care and clinging, you reclaim your energy, you reclaim your mind, you reclaim your freedom. And this freedom does not stop with care alone. It expands into every thought, every judgment, every imagined suffering you have allowed to occupy the space meant for yourself. And as you learn to care without clinging, a deeper lesson presents itself. Attachment disguises it. self as concern, and not noticing it can trap the mind in endless cycles of suffering disguised as virtue. 6. Attachment disguises itself as concern. Consider for a moment all the times you have told yourself you are worried for someone's sake, only to realize later that the worry was about your own discomfort. The mind has a cunning way of disguising attachment as concern. It whispers, "I am caring," when in truth it is clinging, fearing, and controlling. The mind convinces you that your vigilance is for their benefit, yet it is mostly for your peace of mind, or rather, the illusion of peace. This disguise is subtle, almost invisible. You check messages repeatedly. You imagine scenarios endlessly. You try to predict someone's reactions, and you think, "I am doing this for them." But the quiet truth is that attachment is seeking control. Attachment cannot tolerate uncertainty. Attachment cannot sit in stillness. Attachment constantly needs proof, reassurance, and presence. The wisdom lies in noticing the difference. Concern is free. It moves like air, like light, like water. It gives without tethering. Attachment grips. It consumes energy. It distorts reality. It binds the mind to what is not yours to hold. When you begin to observe your own attachments, you see the patterns that have guided so many of your sleepless nights. You see the quiet theft of attention, the endless replay of imagined scenarios, the subtle erosion of your clarity and energy. And then you face a choice: to continue unconsciously feeding the attachment, or to exercise the courage to release it, to let go, and to act with discernment and presence. Releasing attachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you care wisely. It means you extend your energy where it can grow, without giving away the keys to your inner sanctuary. It means you recognize that the world, other people, and even the ones you love are not responsible for your inner state. That responsibility lies entirely within you. And in this awareness, a shift occurs. You begin to see the world differently. You move through life not as a hostage of imagined suffering, of borrowed opinions, or of disguised attachments, but as a practitioner of clarity, discipline, and presence. And in that clarity, another truth becomes visible, the truth that peace begins, not with external circumstances, but with the quiet mastery of the mind itself, the careful tending of the inner world, where nothing is allowed to live rent-free, where care flows without grasping, and where attachment dissolves into wisdom, and from this wisdom, a doorway opens to a further, even deeper understanding of the mind. One that will teach you how to stop interpreting the world unnecessarily and start experiencing reality directly without the interference of imagined narratives or invisible landlords. 7. Peace begins when interpretation ends. We live in a world of constant narratives. Every glance, every word, every silence is interpreted, analyzed, judged. The mind becomes a theater, producing endless plays about what others mean, what they intend, and how they might affect us. And in this constant interpretation, peace is lost. It is always deferred, always chased, always imagined in the next scenario that the mind constructs. Notice this quietly. The world itself does not demand suffering. The trees do not accuse. The wind does not whisper judgment. The sun does not measure your worth. It is only the mind, your mind, interpreting the world according to patterns, fears, and stories you have learned to believe. Interpretation is a veil. It colors reality with doubt, projection, and imagined scenarios. You hear someone's tone and immediately invent intention. You witness silence and immediately invent meaning. You see a gesture and immediately tell yourself a story. And these stories are so convincing that they feel as real as the air you breathe, yet they are often nothing more than shadows of thought. Peace begins not by changing the world, not by convincing others, not by rehearsing outcomes. Peace begins when you stop interpreting, when you allow things to simply be, when you observe without coloring reality with your fears, assumptions, or desires, when the mind no longer insists that every moment must carry significance for you personally, that every glance is a judgment, that every word is a test. This is the first taste of freedom. A mind that observes rather than interprets begins to float above the storm of imag, and suffering, above the clamor of borrowed opinions, above the invisible chains of attachment. It sees clearly. It moves lightly. It responds from clarity rather than reaction. And as this clarity settles, another truth emerges. The people who once haunted your thoughts, the judgments that once controlled your mind, the imagined suffering that once held power, all of it begins to dissolve. You begin to realize that what others think of you is not a force in itself. It is only a force if you allow it to occupy your mind. And this realization leads us to the next subtle but essential understanding. What people think of you is none of your training. The moment you understand this, a weight lifts that you may not have known you were carrying. So much of life is spent rehearsing for an audience that exists only in your imagination. So much energy is invested in pleasing, appeasing, or controlling perceptions that are ultimately irrelevant. What people think of you is their reality, not yours. Their thoughts, their judgments, their assumptions are built on their experiences, their fears, and their desires. You cannot enter their mind. You cannot dictate their interpretation. And yet, for much of life, we treat these external opinions as the ultimate measure of our worth, our competence, our freedom. Consider this deeply. If someone believes you are weak, it changes nothing about your strength. If someone believes you are incapable, it changes nothing about your ability. Our thinking does not define reality. It merely creates a perception that exists outside your control. And the more you invest in controlling that perception, the more you weaken yourself, the more you surrender your mind to forces that were never yours to manage. Your training, your growth, your clarity, and your discipline are internal. They are cultivated in the quiet spaces, the decisions made in absence of observation, the choices that arise from wisdom rather than fear. When you stop being a student of everyone else's opinion, you become a master of your own mind. And mastery is not arrogance. It is not coldness. It is the quiet confidence that arises from knowing that your inner world is sovereign. You no longer need constant validation. You no longer need constant reassurance. You no longer need to replay imagined judgments or anxieties. And in this sovereignty, the mind begins to feel something extraordinary. The freedom to observe without reacting. The freedom to act without anxiety. The freedom to exist without apology. And when this freedom awakens, another subtle power reveals itself, the power of silence. 9. Silence is a form of strength, not withdrawal. Silence is misunderstood. The world teaches that speaking constantly is evidence of vitality, that noise is proof of presence, that reaction is proof of engagement. But there is a deeper strength that lives in the quiet. Silence is not withdrawal. Silence is not avoidance. Silence is not weakness. Silence is the mind observing itself, the mind observing the world, the mind practicing mastery. When you are silent, you conserve energy. You prevent the mind from multiplying suffering. You prevent attachment from disguising itself as concern. You prevent the opinions of others from infiltrating your consciousness. Silence is a protective shield for the inner world. And yet, it is also an active force. In silence, clarity emerges, insight surfaces, intuition awakens. Silence allows the mind to see patterns that words obscure. It allows the heart to recognize truths that noise conceals. It allows the self to remember itself without interference. The person who can hold silence is not empty. They are full of presence, of power, of attention. And there is a subtle magic here. When the world expects reaction, the silent observer moves freely. When others demand explanations, the silent mind acts with wisdom. When tension arises, the silent mind responds with precision. Silence is not passive, it is a form of deep engagement, a concentrated energy, a mindful mastery of the inner and outer worlds. And as silence strengthens you, it leads to a profound understanding. The mind that observes without interpretation, that refuses to rent space to unworthy opinions, that distinguishes care from clinging, that recognizes attachment for what it is, and that embraces the power of quiet observation. This mind becomes unshakable. It becomes unmovable. It becomes free. And from this freedom emerges a subtle, almost imperceptible awareness. The next step is not just to observe silently, but to discipline the mind itself, to govern the thoughts that arise, to notice when suffering is imagined twice, to see when attention is stolen by invisible tenants, and to hold presence above the storms of projection. This is the next level of mastery that awaits those who are ready. 10. Discipline your thoughts, or they will discipline your emotions. The mind is like a garden. If left untended, it becomes overrun with weeds, fears, judgments, regrets, and imagined scenarios. Every thought that is ignored grows roots. Every fear that is entertained expands silently, subtly, until it shapes not only how you feel, but how you move through the world. This is why discipline of thought is not an abstract exercise, it is the foundation of emotional mastery. Consider how many hours, days, even years are spent replaying imagined conversations, worrying about what someone might think, and projecting outcomes that may never happen. Each of these thoughts is a seed. Some seeds bear fruit in the form of insight or creativity, but most bear fruit as suffering, anxiety, or exhaustion. And the mind, when left unchecked, does not distinguish between what serves and what enslaves it, simply grows what is fed. Emotions are not random. They are responses to thought. Anger, fear, sadness, jealousy, even anxiety, they all arise from what you feed your mind. If your thoughts are chaotic, your emotions will be chaotic. If your thoughts are enslaved to other people's words or imagined judgments, your emotions will bend to the same invisible masters. This is why discipline is essential. Discipline is not about controlling the world. Discipline is not about suppressing feelings. Discipline is about choosing which thoughts to nourish, which stories to entertain, and which to release into the void. Discipline is about cultivating awareness so that your mind does not govern you unconsciously. Observe your mind for a moment. Notice the silent repetitions, the endless narratives, the projections onto others, the fears that arise without reason. These are the untrained patterns that steal your energy, cloud your judgment, and dictate your emotions. The more you notice, the more you can intervene. The more you intervene, the more freedom emerges. And here is a subtle but powerful truth. A disciplined mind does not reject feelings. It does not deny reality. It simply refuses to allow untrained thought to dictate the emotional landscape. It recognizes that thoughts are tools, not masters. When you hold this awareness, the storms of emotion lose their power. They come and go like clouds, leaving the sky of your consciousness clear, expansive and serene. Yet, this clarity is only the beginning. Once the mind learns to govern itself, another skill emerges, one that allows not just emotional balance, but deep insight into the human world. The ability to see people clearly without the distortions of fear, judgment, or projection. This skill leads naturally into the next understanding. 11. A calm mind sees people clearly. A busy mind projects stories. When the mind is restless, distracted, or obsessed with other people's words and opinions, it cannot see reality. It can only project. Every gesture, every glance, every word becomes a canvas for imagination. The mind fills in gaps with fears, assumptions, and stories, convincing itself that it is observing truth, when in fact it is observing its own projections. Think about the countless misunderstandings in life. How often do conflicts arise not from what was actually said or done, but from the stories the mind invented? How often do we replay imagined slights, magnify innocent actions, and assign intentions that were never there? The mind is always eager to fill the silence, always eager to tell a story, always eager to judge. And in doing so, it divorces itself from reality. Contrast this with a calm mind. A calm mind does not rush to interpret. It does not need to know. It observes, it watches, it waits, it listens. In stillness, the truth of people begins to reveal itself, not as judgment or assumption, but as simple reality. A calm mind notices the tone without twisting it. It sees the gesture without projecting meaning. It perceives the intention without coloring it with fear. This is the power of observation. It is a form of clarity that arises from disciplined thought, from emotional awareness, and from the courage to it quietly with what is. A calm mind is like a lake. The surface reflects clearly when undisturbed. Disturb it with wind, agitation, or projection, and the reflection becomes distorted, fragmented, almost unrecognizable. When you cultivate this calm, you begin to see the world differently. People no longer control your inner state. Situations no longer trigger unnecessary anxiety. Words and actions arrive, and you respond from presence rather than projection. You recognize patterns, intentions, and truths with precision. You are no longer a prisoner of imagined narratives. You are a master observer, and yet, even this clarity has layers. Observing others without projection requires ongoing attention because mind is restless and will constantly attempt to fill silence with stories. This is why mastery is not a destination. It is a practice, a lifelong cultivation. And as you notice this pattern, another subtle truth emerges. You are not responsible for other people's inner chaos. And recognizing this is the next step toward ultimate freedom. 12. You are not responsible for other people's inner chaos. Consider this quietly. So much of life is spent carrying burdens that do not belong to you. The emotions, judgments, fears, and insecurities of others. How often do you try to manage them, fix them, or take them inside yourself? How often do you feel responsible for the reactions, moods, or anger of people around you, as if their inner storms were somehow your duty to calm? Not. Eyes how subtle this burden can be. It does not always appear as a loud demand. Often, it arrives as a whisper. They might be upset because of me. I must act to soothe them. I must anticipate their moods. I must prevent conflict. And so the mind spins. The energy is drained. The emotions that are not yours become entangled with yours. And suddenly you feel heavy, exhausted, and off balance, not because of your life, but because of someone else. Inner chaos. This is a critical moment of awareness. Recognizing that you are not responsible for other people's inner worlds does not mean you lack compassion. It does not mean you abandon kindness. It simply means you understand the boundaries of your mind. You are responsible for your own clarity, your own thoughts, your own energy, your own emotions. You are not responsible for the projections, fears, and untrained stories of others. Imagine how much power is wasted when the mind carries this unnecessary weight. Imagine the clarity, freedom, and peace that arise when you draw a firm line. This is mine. That is theirs. I observe. I respond consciously. I do not absorb. I do not carry what is not mine. This understanding is transformative. It allows you to move through a world without constantly being pulled by invisible tethers. You begin to see the patterns of chaos around you, not as threats, but as phenomena you can witness without attachment. And in this witnessing, you develop a subtle but profound wisdom. Compassion does end. What you require control. Understanding does not require ownership. Presence does not require responsibility for what is not yours. And as you embody this, the mind begins to feel lighter, the heart begins to feel spacious, and your energy is finally available to flow toward your own growth, your own clarity, and your own purpose. And in this space of liberation, another truth appears, one that refines not only how you see the world, but how you act within it. Respect others, but prioritize self-mastery. 13. Respect others, but prioritize self-mastery. Respect is a gentle current. It flows naturally toward life, toward people, toward ideas, toward differences. It acknowledges presence without attempting to control it. It honors others without diminishing the self. Yet respect is not the same as surrender. It is not permission to let your mind, your energy, or your attention be hijacked by the chaos or expectations of others. Self-mastery is the anchor. It is the discipline that allows you to observe without absorbing. It is the training that allows you to act from clarity rather than reaction. It is the understanding that your mind is sacred, your energy is precious, and your presence is a resource to be managed intentionally. Without self-mastery, respect can become weakness. Without self-mastery, care can become attachment. Without self-mastery, even kindness can be distorted into suffering. Notice the subtle balance here. Respect does not require submission. Care does not require clinging. Compassion does not require sacrifice of your clarity. You can honor others while maintaining boundaries. You can engage deeply without surrendering your mind. You can act wisely without being enslaved by imagined narratives. Self-mastery begins with observation, noticing the patterns of thought, the silent influences of others, the habits of mental projection. Then it requires intervention, choosing which thoughts to feed, which emotions to respond to, which attachments to release. And finally, it requires integration, living consistently in awareness, so that every action, word, and thought reflects clarity, presence, and discernment. This is the path of the unshakable mind. The mind that is disciplined in thought, free of attachment, silent in observation, clear in perception, and sovereign in energy. The mind that can see people clearly, honor them, and act wisely without being distracted, manipulated, or exhausted by their inner chaos. And as self-mastery deepens, you begin to notice another subtle truth. Energy is sacred and protected. It intentionally is not a choice. It is the foundation of living fully. And this leads directly into understanding how to preserve your vitality amidst a world that constantly seeks to deplete it. 14. Your energy is sacred. Protect it intentionally. Close your eyes and imagine energy as a river flowing through you. Every thought, every worry, every imagined judgment, and every distraction takes a drop from that river. Slowly, most imperceptibly, the current diminishes until it no longer nourishes your mind, your body, or your spirit. Energy is not infinite. It is sacred. And yet, so often, it is surrendered unconsciously to people who do not respect it, to imagined scenarios, to silent fears, and to the invisible storms of other people's inner chaos. Notice how subtle this drain can be. A single comment replayed in your mind, a fleeting imagined judgment, a worry about what others might think. These small leaks, multiplied over hours, days, or years, quietly exhaust the reservoir of your presence. And then, when life demands clarity, focus, or courage, the well is empty. To protect your energy intentionally, awareness must precede action. You must observe where your energy flows. What thoughts do you give life to? What scenarios do you allow to occupy your attention? Who is permitted to reside in your consciousness? What burdens are you carrying that are not yours? Energy is not given freely. It is earned, cultivated, and maintained once observed. Boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are not walls against life. They are gates that allow life to enter, filter it through presence and wisdom, and release what is harmful. A thought that diminishes your clarity is refused entry. A conversation that drains your strength is acknowledged, but not absorbed. A relationship that consumes your presence without reciprocity is honored with distance. This is not cruelty, it is self-preservation. Energy flows where intention guides it. When you direct your energy consciously, it becomes a force for clarity, creativity, and presence. When you protect it, the mind becomes calm, the heart becomes spacious, and the spirit becomes free. The sacred current flows uninterrupted, nourishing your actions, your decision, and your inner world. And as this awareness deepens, another truth emerges. It is not enough to simply protect energy. You must also cultivate the wisdom to act without attachment, to care without grasping. 15. Detachment is not indifference, it is wisdom. The mind confuses detachment with coldness. The world often calls it apathy. Yet detachment is not the absence of care. Detachment is a form of clarity, a form of power, a cultivated awareness that allows you to engage without being enslaved. When the mind clings, it binds itself to outcomes, to opinions, and to imagined suffering. Detachment allows the mind to act from presence, not from fear, projection, or habit. Observe the difference carefully. Attachment reacts. It fears loss. It seeks control. It imagines consequences. And it suffers repeatedly. Detachment acts. It sees clearly, without distortion, without the heavy weight of projection. Detachment responds with precision, presence, and courage. It honors life without surrendering sovereignty. This wisdom is subtle but transformative. Detachment allows you to care deeply for another without losing your center. It allows you to maintain respect without inviting chaos into your consciousness. It allows you to act in alignment with your values without being swayed by external judgments or imagined expectations. Notice the mind when it clings. It twists every gesture, magnifies every word, and paints every silence with fear. Now notice the mind when it is detached. It observes, perceives, and engages without distortion. It does not mean you stop loving, stop acting, or stop caring. It means that your love, your action, your care arises from clarity rather than compulsion. Detachment requires discipline. It requires patience. It requires constant observation of where the mind seeks to tether itself unnecessarily. Yet the reward is profound freedom. The freedom to act with intention. The freedom to think without invisible landlords. The freedom to move through life with your energy intact, your presence whole, and your mind unshaken. And as detachment is cultivated, a deeper clarity emerges. When the mind governs itself, protects its energy, and distinguishes between attachment and wisdom, you step in a space where peace is not conditional, suffering is not inevitable, and life is not dictated by the chaos of others. From this space, the next level of mastery becomes visible, the mastery of purpose, presence, and unshakable inner strength that will define your journey through 2026. 16. Your mind is your sanctuary. Treat it as sacred. The mind is the most intimate space you will ever inhabit. It is quiet, yet powerful, subtle, yet relentless, invisible, yet capable of shaping the world you experience. And yet, so often, we treat it carelessly. We allow gossip, imagined judgments, external chaos, and uninvited thoughts to wander freely within this sacred space. Each careless thought, each idle worry, each attachment that is nurtured without awareness becomes a trespasser, silently eroding the strength and clarity of the sanctuary. Observe this quietly. How often has your peace been stolen by thoughts that have nothing to do with you? How often have nights been restless because of imagined fears, or days consumed because of scenarios that exist only in the mind? And yet, these intrusions are not inevitable. They are not destiny. They are the result of habits, of untrained attention, of energy given without intention. To treat the mind as sacred requires discipline, observation, and patience. It is a practice that begins with awareness, noticing what occupies your mental space. Each thought that arises is not inherently dangerous, but unobserved, it becomes a tenant that never leaves. Begin to recognize what is beneficial, what is necessary, and what is not yours to entertain. The next step is stewardship, closing the door gently but firmly to those mental intruders that seek free residence. This does not require aggression. It does not require judgment. It simply requires the understanding that your mind is not a public forum. It is not a playground for fear, gossip, or imagined narratives. It is your sanctuary, a sacred space where clarity, peace, and wisdom may reside. And when you begin to protect your mind intentionally, a subtle but profound transformation occurs. Energy is preserved. Emotions are no longer hijacked by external chaos. Clarity emerges naturally. Decisions are made from presence rather than reaction. Actions become precise. Words carry weight because they arise from stillness, not noise. Yet, even in this sanctuary, the mind is not static. It is alive. It is fluid. It must be cared for daily. And this care leads to the next truth. When your mind is sacred, your focus becomes a deliberate force, and your attention ceases to scatter into unnecessary distractions. 17. Focus is power. Distraction is surrender. The human mind has been gifted with an extraordinary capacity to concentrate, to perceive, to create. Focus is the manifestation of that power. When the mind is focused, energy flows like a river toward a single purpose. It is deliberate. It is precise. It is unstoppable. Focus allows mastery, it allows insight, and it allows action that is aligned with intention rather than chaos. Distraction, on the other hand, is surrender. It is the quiet erosion of attention. It is the mind giving itself to what does not serve it, to what does not nourish it, to what does not elevate it. Each unexamined thought, each interruption, each mental habit that pulls the mind in multiple directions weakens presence. Slowly, subtly, the mind loses sovereignty over itself. Energy is scattered. Clarity is diminished, and the ability to act wisely is compromised. Notice how easily this happens. A glance at a screen, a replay of imagined judgments, worries about others' opinions, engagement in endless narratives that are not yours. Each small act seems harmless, yet cumulatively, they fragment consciousness and weaken the inner sanctuary you have worked to protect. Focus cultivated, not forced. It begins with awareness, recognizing when the mind is scattering, noticing the invisible habits that steal attention, and choosing consciously where the mind is directed. It requires discipline, yes, but also gentleness, for the mind resists control that feels violent. You guide it, not punish it. You train it, not confine it. When focus becomes habitual, life transforms. Energy flows where intention guides it. Emotions are steadier, clarity emerges naturally. Actions have depth, and decisions carry wisdom. You begin to understand that distraction is a subtle surrender of sovereignty, a surrender that can be reversed with conscious presence. And as focus strengthens, another quiet power reveals itself. The ability to navigate life with precision, to act without reaction, and to engage with the world fully while remaining unshakable in inner presence. This is the doorway to the final insights, the mastery of life's rhythm, the art of observing without interference, and the ultimate liberation of the mind. 18. Mastery is internal. Nothing external can control your peace. C is not a gift granted by circumstances. It is not a reward earned through validation or approval. It is not found in wealth, recognition, or the behavior of others. Peace is internal. It resides in the quiet governance of the mind, the disciplined cultivation of attention, and the sacred protection of energy. And mastery, the highest form of freedom, is born here within. Observe how often the mind looks outside for control. How often do you seek reassurance in the words of others? How often do you allow moods, judgments, or events to dictate the state of your consciousness? When someone criticizes you, the mind reacts. When the world shifts unpredictably, the mind panics. When silence falls, the mind spins endlessly. All of this is a sign that control has been given away, silently, unconsciously, to forces external to you. True mastery begins with the recognition that nothing external has the power to touch your inner sanctuary unless you invite it. Every reaction, every disturbance, every wave of emotion that feels overwhelming is often not the situation itself, but the mind's response to it. The world cannot control you. Only the patterns of untrained thought, attachment, and distraction can. Notice the subtle but profound implication of this. External events, the opinions of others, and the chaos of life are not inherently threats. They only threaten your peace if you surrender to them. They only disrupt your clarity if you allow your energy to scatter. They only disturb your center if you permit invisible tenants to occupy your sanctuary. Mastery is claiming sovereignty over the mind, no matter what surrounds you. The first step in this practice is observation. Watch your mind quietly. Observe where it becomes reactive, where it chases imagined stories, where it clings to outcomes, where it absorbs chaos that is not yours. Do not judge yourself for these tendencies. Observation is not condemnation, it is awareness. And awareness is the doorway to freedom. The next step is intervention. When you notice a thought that drains energy, release it. When you notice a worry that has no foundation in present reality, set it aside. When you notice attachment disguised as concern, disentangle it. This is not suppression, this is discipline. This is internal sovereignty. This is the cultivation of unshakable presence. And then comes integration. Your mind, once trained, becomes a sanctuary in all conditions. The noise of the world passes through without leaving residue. The judgments of others touch the mind without altering its calm. The chaos of life moves around you, yet your center remains steady, expansive, and free. Mastery is internal, not external. Peace is internal, not conditional. Power is internal, not borrowed. And as mastery deepens, a subtle realization emerges. The external world is merely a mirror of the mind. The clarity, stillness, and freedom within reflect outward, influencing the world without forcing it, shaping life without control, living it, engaging fully without surrendering sovereignty. You see others clearly because the lens of your mind is undistorted. You respond wisely because your energy is intact. You act decisively because your presence is whole. Notice the exquisite paradox. Here, the more internal mastery you cultivate, the more effortless life becomes. The storms of circumstance do not cease, but your relationship to them transforms completely. You are no longer a participant in chaos. You are a conscious observer and an intentional actor. Energy is preserved, focus is sharpened, attachments are discerned, care is extended wisely, and every thought and action arises from presence rather than reaction. And in this mastery, a culmination of all previous insights is revealed when you treat the mind as sacred. Protect energy intentionally, distinguish care from clinging, embrace detachment as wisdom, cultivate focus, observe without interpretation, and refuse to surrender to the chaos of others. You enter a state where peace is not a fleeting moment, but the baseline of existence. It is a life lived in alignment with the deepest currents of truth, clarity, and purpose. And there is one final, almost imperceptible layer. Mastery is not a goal to achieve. It is a practice, a lifelong cultivation. It is a daily choice to return to the sanctuary of the mind, to reclaim sovereignty whenever it is lost, to protect energy whenever it is threatened, and to act with clarity whenever distraction arises. Is the art of living the path to freedom and the foundation of a mind unshakable in 2026 and beyond. In this space, every thought, every emotion, every interaction is an opportunity to practice sovereignty. Every silence becomes fertile. Every action becomes deliberate. Every presence becomes sacred. And as this understanding settles, you realize the quiet truth that has been whispered through all the keynotes. Nothing external can touch your inner peace unless you invite it. And in that realization, you are truly free. And with this freedom, the mind opens fully to the flow of life, untouched by imagined narratives, invisible landlords, or borrowed chaos. The world exists, but it does not bind. People speak, but their words do not govern. Life moves, but the center remains steady. You have mastered the art of being, not through control of the world, but through sovereignty over the mind, a sanctuary that nothing external can disrupt. And in this ultimate realization, the journey begins anew, because mastery is not static. It is alive. It is breathing. It is deliberate. It is constant. Every moment is practice. Every interaction is opportunity. Every thought is a choice. And the mind, now trained, now sacred, now disciplined, now free, flows through life as it was always meant to, untethered, unshakable, and whole. Remember this above all: your mind is a sanctuary where freedom resides. Your energy is sacred and must be protected. And your peace is not granted by the world, it is claimed from within. Every thought you discipline, every attachment you release, every moment of focus and observation builds a life unshakable by circumstance, undisturbed by opinion, and untethered from chaos. The external world will always fluctuate, people will always speak, and situations will always test you, but none of it can touch the calm, clarity, and sovereignty you cultivate within. Choose awareness over reaction, presence over distraction, and wisdom over attachment. Live intentionally. Guard your mind, honor your energy, and step into 2026 with the quiet confidence that true mastery is internal. Peace is inevitable when cultivated, and your life unfolds in harmony with the deepest currents of truth. In this space, nothing external can control you, and everything becomes possible.